Gentleman yields back. Chair, I recognize the gentleman from New York, Mr. Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Head wounds, heavy bleeding, and then just shrapnel all over. So folks are bleeding from their abdomen, bleeding from arms, bleeding from legs. Secretary Hegseth, do you know who said that?
I'm not sure I do.
It was one of our soldiers describing the devastating Iranian drone strike at Port Shuaibah, March 1st in Kuwait. As you know, 6 of our soldiers killed, over 30 wounded. Secretary, do you know the range of the Shahed 136 one-way attack drone, approximately?
It depends on the variant, but it's got serious distance.
Several hundred miles. Mm-hmm. Do you know how far Port Shuaibah is from Iran?
There's a reason why we took extreme measures for force protection, because we understood the proximity challenges.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to reclaim my time. It's well under 100 miles. Before the war started, there was clear intelligence that Shuaibah was high on Iran's target list. Internal analysis had said the site was indefensible from aerial attack and should not be used. Yet you sent our soldiers from the 103rd Sustainment Command there anyway. Is that true or false? True or false? Straightforward question.
Are you going to give me a chance to answer or just play gotcha?
Did you send them there or not?
We took proactive measures from the beginning to ensure force protection and defensive posture were maximized across the theater.
Let's talk about what defenses they had. Prior to the attack, officers on the ground knew our troops were vulnerable. In fact, they requested additional force protection. Did they receive it?
Wherever humanly possible, force protection and counter UAS was always made available.
They did not. In fact, when asked to describe the base's defense, one survivor who's come forward from the unit said, quote, I would put it in the none category. From a drone defense capability, none. So let's be clear, no counter-drone capabilities, no counter-rocket systems, no counter-mortar or counter-artillery, not even the basic overhead protection that you and I had 20 years ago in Iraq, and now 6 of our soldiers are dead. The next day, you downplayed the attack. You said it was a squirter that squeaked through fortified defenses. But since then, thankfully, brave survivors have come forward to set the record straight. One of our surviving soldiers told CBS, quote, painting a picture that one squeaked through is a falsehood. Another said the unit was, quote, unprepared to provide any defense for itself. It was not a fortified position. Another survivor said the building's protection was about as weak as one gets. Secretary Hegseth, that is obviously in direct contradiction to what you said from the Pentagon podium the next day. So are you saying that these soldiers, our soldiers who survived this horrific attack, are lying?
What I'm saying is, before the commencement of the conflict, we put in maximum defensive posture we could.
That's a direct contradiction.
We moved 70
to what they said,
in this directing. Can I speak, or are you just going to monologue falsehoods all over the place?
It's not a falsehood.
We moved 7,500 troops off of the X based on the intel.
Stop.
Based on the intel.
Stop. Reclaiming my time.
Because you yell doesn't make you right. Just because you yell doesn't make you right.
I'm reclaiming my time on behalf of these survivors. You just said what they said is a falsehood.
There's a much larger picture.
True?
There's a much larger picture at play here that included integrated air defenses, bunkers, moving people off the X
Mr. Secretary,
to ensure that they were not part of the target. We moved those troops and all across the theater, thousands of troops off the X, off of their bases, because we knew what Iran was going to try to strike, and we knew there could be a tragic moment. There could be a tragic moment where something could get through. Of course, that's the consequence of conflict, and we remember those 6 every single day.
I want to finish.
But don't play games with.
I'm not playing games. I want to finish with one more quote from a survivor of the attack, and I put this on the record. Telling the truth is important, and we're not going to learn from these mistakes if we pretend these mistakes didn't happen. Secretary Hegseth, those soldiers told the truth. Those soldiers are braver than you are.
I commend them.
They are asking for accountability. They deserve accountability, and I'm asking for the same, starting with you. And as I said a year ago, you need to resign immediately.
I commend those soldiers.
I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Chair now recognizes the gentleman from...
Now listen, I just watched this exchange between a former veteran representative and PeteHegseth, and I'm not even going to lie to you, this wasn't just a normal hearing. This was uncomfortable to watch because what we saw wasn't just a disagreement, it was a complete breakdown in accountability. So the representative starts by reading a statement, and not just any statement. He's quoting one of the soldiers who survived that Iranian drone strike. He's describing head wounds, heavy bleeding, shrapnel everywhere, soldiers bleeding from their arms, legs, their abdomen, and right there, from the very beginning, you can already feel the weight of what happened. Then he asks PeteHegseth a simple question: "Do you know who said that?" And Hegseth says he's not sure. Now pause right there, because that moment alone already tells you that something. It tells you something. Okay, we're talking about an attack that killed, unalived 6 American soldiers and injured more than 30. Allegedly, okay, and yet the person being questioned can't immediately recognize the voice of the people who lived through it. That's already a disconnect, but it gets deeper. So the representative then starts asking about the Iranian drone, the Shahed 136, basic fundamental questions like what's the range, how far can it go? And to be fair, Hegseth answers that part. He says that it depends on the variant, but it can travel several hundred miles. Okay, fine. Okay, but then comes the real question, the one that changes everything. How far is Porter? I'm not pronouncing this correctly. Okay, Shuaba, from Iran, and there is the hesitation. So the representative answers it himself: less than 100 miles, less than 100 miles. Do you understand what that means? That means that those soldiers were stationed in a location that was well within striking distance, not theoretical danger, not maybe someday, immediate, real calculated risk. And this is where the tone of the conversation shifts, because now the representative brings up intelligence reports that already identified that location as a high-risk target, reports that literally said the site was vulnerable, that it could not be properly defended against aerial attacks, and yet troops were still sent there. So he asked the question again very clearly: did you send them there, true or false? And instead of getting a direct answer, what do we get? Deflation. Are you going to let me answer, or is this a gotcha moment? Listen, I don't like that kind of response, because those are not gotcha questions. Those are accountability questions. There's a difference. I mean, if lives were lost, if warnings were ignored, if decisions were made that put soldiers in harm's way, then yes, you need to answer directly, no dancing around it. But it doesn't stop there. The representative then shifts to something even more serious: protection, or the lack of it. He says the officers on the ground knew the troops were vulnerable. They requested additional defense systems, counter-drone, counter-rocket, basic protection. So naturally, the question is, did they get it? And again, instead of a clear yes or no, we get a general statement. Whenever possible, protections are made available. But here's the problem. The evidence says otherwise, because a survivor from that attack came forward and said very clearly that the drone defense's capability was basically non-existent. None. Let that sink in. No counter drone system, no protection against incoming attacks, not even basic overhead cover, the kind of protection soldiers had decades ago, according to what the representative was asking. And I'm sitting here thinking, how does that even happen? How do you knowingly place soldiers in a high-risk zone within a range of enemy drones with intelligence already warning you, and still give them the protection and still not give them the protection they asked for? That is not just a mistake. That is not a mistake. That's a failure, okay, somewhere in the chain. And this is where the emotional weight really hits, because the representative doesn't hold back anymore. He says it plainly: 6 soldiers were unalived. They are unalived, 6 lives gone. And yes, Hegseth responds by saying that's the reality of conflict. Those soldiers are remembered every day. But I'm going to be honest with you guys. That response felt insufficient, if you ask me, because remembering is not the same as accountability. Honoring the fallen is not the same as explaining what went wrong. And that's exactly what the representative pushes on. He brings up statements from a survivor and says something that really stood out to me. He says, we cannot learn from mistake if we pretend they didn't happen. That right there, that's the whole point of this conversation, because if no one takes responsibility, then nothing changes. And if nothing changes, then this can happen again, Then he says something even stronger. He tells HEGSETH that those soldiers, the ones who survived, are brave than he is because they are willing to speak the truth. They're demanding accountability. And honestly, that's a very heavy statement, but you can understand where it is coming from, because at the end of the day, those soldiers were the ones on the ground. They're the ones who got exposed. They were the ones who were bleeding. So they can speak. I mean, we are listening. And then the final blow, the representative calls for his resignation, just like that, no hesitation. And whether you agree with that or not, you can't ignore the reasons behind it. This wasn't just political theater. This was about decisions that had real consequences. And that is why this whole exchange matters. Beyond politics, beyond the headlines, beyond the back and forth, this is about leadership. It's about responsibility. And it's about making sure that when soldiers are sent into harm's way, they're not sent there unprepared. Because once something like this happens, you can't undo it. You can only answer for it. And right now, it feels like those answers are still missing. Yeah, so you guys, if you made it up to this end, make sure you subscribe and turn on that notification bell so that every time I upload such videos, you guys will be notified. I'll see you in my next video. Please stay peaceful.